In this video, we are going to find the fraction that is between 52 over 303 and 16 over 91, and this fraction has the minimal denominator. Before we move on, don't forget to give a like, subscribe to my channel, and turn on post notifications. So as you can see, the decimal value of these two fractions are really close. One is 0.17161716 and the other is 0.17582418. The difference is like 0.004, so it's quite hard to spot the fraction that lies between these two given fractions. So my strategy to find this fraction is to find the reciprocal of the two given fractions so that I can reveal the difference to make the difference between these two fractions more significant. To do this, the middle fraction will become b over a, but now the larger function, after flipping, will become the smallest fraction. So then this fraction b over a is supposed to be larger than 91 over 16, whereas the smaller fraction is now the largest one. So b over a is supposed to be smaller than 303 over 52. Now let's see whether the difference becomes wider between the two numerical fractions. Indeed, the smaller fraction has decimal value 5.6875, while the larger fraction has decimal value 5.82692308. So the difference is now about 0.14, which is way larger than the previous gap. Well, because the previous gap is just 0.0042 and now it's about 0.14. So the next step is that I'm going to subtract all fractions in this inequality by 5. So then the smallest fraction now becomes 11 over 16, because 91 over 16 minus 5 is just 91 minus 80, all divided by 16. While for the other function, the numerator is subtracted by 260, and so we have 43 over 52. Now after doing that, again we have a fraction that is between 0 and 1, so then the reciprocal step becomes possible again. However, the fraction in the middle now becomes b minus 5a, all divided by a. So the middle fraction starts to become more complicated. Next, we can do the reciprocal step again, and now we have 52 over 43 as the smaller fraction, and that's less than a over b minus 5a, the reciprocal of the middle fraction in the previous step, and the larger fraction now becomes 16 over 11. So both fractions are between 1 and 2, so I'm going to subtract all fractions in this line by 1. Then 52 minus 43 equals 9, so the smaller fraction is equal to 9 over 43. The larger fraction is equal to 5 over 11, while for the middle, we need to do a little arithmetic. A over b minus 5a minus 1 is just equal to minus b minus 5a all divided by itself. And subtracting, we have 6a minus b all divided by b minus 5a. So the middle fraction now becomes much more complicated. It's 6a minus b all divided by b minus 5a. Now I can do the reciprocal step again because the fractions on both sides are between 0 and 1. Now after the flipping, the smaller fraction is actually the reciprocal of the larger one in the previous step. So it's 11 over 5. Whereas for the larger fraction, it should be 43 over 9. and the fraction in the middle is b minus 5a, all divided by 6a minus b. Now here's the interesting thing. The smaller fraction has decimal value 2.2, while the decimal value of the larger fraction is now 4.7 recurring. So the gap becomes way larger than before, because the gap is about 2.57. So now we can simply pick a very neat number and set it to be equal to the fraction in the middle. Since we are looking for a fraction a over b, with b taking the smallest value, so I want this ratio to take numbers to be as small as possible, and the candidates will be integer values that are between the two fractions. Now we have 2.2 and 4.7 recurring, so we have two options. The first option is that this fraction b minus 5a over 6a minus b equals 3, or this fraction is equal to 4. Now let's try to solve these two equations and see what's the ratio of a to b. Then it's some simple arithmetic. For the first case, we have 4 over 23, while for the other case, by solving, we have the required fraction to be 5 over 29. Now the fraction for the case that we picked 3, and we get 4 over 23, the decimal value is 0.17391304, whereas for the other fraction that we've got, the decimal value is 0.17241379, and both fractions fall within the range that we want, so they are both valid choices. However, we are looking for fractions with the minimal denominator, so this is the smallest, has the smallest denominator I mean. And of course, we can check that all fractions with small denominator cannot fall within the range that are given. So that means 4 over 23 is the fraction that we want, and this is our final answer. Please feel free to share your ideas in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you next time.